AI is not just like allowing people to build apps with our app. AI is making us so much faster at shipping code.
Yeah. The decision behind making this mobile first,
Yeah.
right? And not having, say, a desktop app that lets you make mobile app.
I'm very happy we made the choice to build a mobile
Yeah.
app for multiple reasons. One, like no one had done it. So it was like very unique, and that got us a lot of organic traction online, even without like putting our names behind it. Two, it's way easier to get started. You see an ad, you see a video, and most of the time you're consuming content on your phone.
On your phone, yeah.
You can just download the app versus like, remember to go to this website later. I think deployment is like one of the hardest things people are stuck with. So I think the way that we are solving that right now is like through app clips. So Apple has this like very cool feature where you can share like a fully native iOS app with other people.
Welcome to the Why You Should Join podcast, where every 2 weeks we sit down with some of the founders of some of the most notable hypergrowth startups. As always, my name is Usman. I'm one of the co-authors of the Why You Should Join newsletter, and I'm also the host of this podcast. Today's company, Vibecode, is building the very first mobile app that builds mobile apps. Their product is an app that lets you type or speak your app idea directly into your phone, and within minutes you'll have a fully native app ready to use or publish. The company was founded in 2024. They've raised over $9.3 million to date, with investors including Long Journey Ventures, Neo, 776, and more. I'm super excited to be chatting with Ansh Nanda, the company's CEO and co-founder. Ansh, thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Usman.
Well, this is a really special episode. One, because this is one of my favorite companies. Two, because I'm in an actual studio this time, so this will be really fun. But let's dive right into it. For those who maybe haven't seen Vibecode or used the product, we have the man of the hour here anyway. I'd love for you to walk through what is the Vibecode experience like? What can people expect when they're using it?
So Vibecode is the very first mobile app that lets you build mobile apps on your phone. So the experience is you download the app from the App Store, you put in your prompt, and then it generates your app in anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes. That's pretty much it. It's a pretty magical experience when you first try it, because it's like kind of crazy that you can do this now. Like if you went back like 2 years and told me that like, hey, these apps that you're spending like hours and weeks to build could be built like in a few minutes while you're like at the gym, in the subway, taking a shit, I would have been like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. You just tap, and then you have an app.
Yeah. And what type of apps are you seeing being built on Vibecode right now? Are people like building apps for personal use? Like, is this a bunch of to-do lists and things like that? Or are people building apps for their companies and businesses? What are you seeing on Vibecode?
Yeah, it's a big mix. And it's hard to say that there's like one use case that's like winning right now, because it's so early. Like even this idea of vibe coding, I think hasn't been spread out to the mainstream yet. I think it's still reserved with the 1% of like Silicon Valley and like
Tech
people
Twitter.
Tech Twitter, like people who are interested in technology and the newest in AI. It's like even ChatGPT, for example, hasn't like had mass penetration compared to like, the benchmark would be like social media, right? And ChatGPT is like what, 30%, Instagram's like 80% if the US population is using it on a daily basis. So vibe coding is probably like 0.1%, right? So we're like very, very early. That being said, I think we can broadly categorize the kinds of apps that are being built today into 3 different categories. First, it's like you said, personal use apps. So people want to build apps that are similar to apps that they might use, like a workout tracker, a recipe tracker is a big one, and customize some feature. They want to make something like that's like personal to their use case. Like we've had, people who are like very, very passionate home chefs make like recipe apps that have like their meal planning system like very specific to their particular tastes. So I think that's like something that we're going to see is like this era of hyper personalized software. I think there's obviously this big category of people who want to build apps and get it on the App Store. So we're seeing a lot of people try to build a lot of app clones of stuff that already exists, but also like net new ideas.
Yeah.
So that's been interesting. So we've seen a lot of like AI chat apps with like, different um angles. We saw like in this alcohol scanner app, that one's pretty interesting. We've seen a bunch of like a coin identifier. We've seen like popular apps that people are using, like an app that helps people quit nicotine, but like it was made completely in Hindi. So
Oh,
intended use of the user was to like release it to a different audience. So we're seeing a lot of these apps that are like already very popular in the App Store
yeah.
have different versions of them being built
Yeah.
that are like specific to like different niches. So people like want to try to make money from this like new kind of paradigm,
Yeah. Yeah.
which allows them to make money. And then third category is just generally speaking like internal tooling.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of like small businesses, and these are like small businesses, like Rust Belt small businesses, like HVAC technician business or like a real estate business, build like tooling for their use cases.
Yeah.
So, um, they could build something like, for example, in the HVAC, they built an app where they allow their like HVAC technicians to scan HVAC units and get like up-to-date documentation.
Oh, wow. And this is happening today.
Yeah, it's happening. This
Wow.
this was happening months ago. Like that was one of our original first like app ideas that we were like, wow, this is like super interesting
Yeah.
that people are doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those three categories broadly are what we're seeing.
Wow. And okay. And so, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, that's really interesting. And do you guys like have a bias towards like who uses this? Obviously, everyone using it is
Yeah.
great, right? But like, is there like within the company, is there some ICP that you guys have in mind? I ask this because I figure this probably guides some of the design and feature choices, right? Like if you're bringing this for people who are trying to build businesses, then you might have to like spend a lot of time with like monetization infrastructure. And the reason why I ask that is because of like the design and feature decisions, right? And like, would you need to maybe, focus more time on trying to like include like a Stripe integration or something, right? Is there an ICP or is this really for anyone?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think right now we're still, like I said, way too early
Yeah.
to like double down on an audience. And I think a lot of people, when they give typical company building advice, they're like, oh, you should like, pick a niche and then
Yeah.
get really good at that niche. I think all that advice does not apply anymore in like the current
Okay.
era of software development, because AI is not just like allowing people to build apps with our app. AI is making us so much faster at shipping code.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't make sense to limit our product potential in an era where shipping code or like getting more features is like there's so much abundant supply of
Yeah.
that, right? Like this advice I think was very applicable to 5 years ago, where like, if you pick the wrong thing, you'd like lose like 3 months of
Yeah. Yeah.
like, engineering time. If we pick the wrong thing, we lose like 3 days, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's not really that bad of like an option to be able to build something that like really truly works for everyone.
Yeah.
That being said, I think right now, since we're so early and we're still trying to figure it out, there are two main things that we're trying to focus on, because I think it's still important to have some direction. You can't just like go out there and do everything.
Yeah.
The two main direction is, how do we increase the market size of people using Vibecode? So how do we become the brand that people know when they try to learn about vibe coding?
Yeah.
So what are the features we need to build to like get more people to do this, to make it useful for more people? How do we show people that on YouTube and on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, like how do we show people like this something that they want? So sort of TAM expansion ideas or like features. And the second thing is just like listening to users.
Yeah.
I think users are screaming on the top of their lungs for a lot of like features that we're like rolling out very soon. You'll see them, but like, just some that I'm gonna say that are probably gonna come out by the time this is done. They're like, they want a way to submit to the App Store. They want a way to add backend integrations, like for saving data across different users' devices, right? We don't have any of that stuff right now. they want, some of the more advanced users want like a web app to build these mobile apps as a companion, not as like the main thing, but like as a place where they can type out longer prompts.
Yeah.
And you know, that makes sense for some of the power users, and um, it makes sense that those are the loudest people. But then there are also people who like want an Android app. They want to build different kinds of software. They want to build like websites or automations, like more like no code type things
Yeah.
that like are kind of different to an app builder.
Yeah.
So those are also things we're thinking about. So I think we're seeing yeah, like we're seeing like a lot of interest, and it is a hard decision to like
Yeah.
figure out like what to build. But I think it's not as hard as it once was, because like the opportunity cost of picking the quote unquote wrong thing is like so much lower, because like measured in days, not months of dev time.
Yeah. And I'd love to talk a little bit about some of these like features that you mentioned that by the time this probably comes out, we'll already be there. I suppose like one of the questions I had here was the decision behind making this mobile first,
Yeah.
right? And not having, say, a desktop app that lets you make mobile apps.
Yeah.
I guess first I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Like, what was that decision? Why not just start off with you know, a website where people can make mobile apps and please all these, you know, power users from day one?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting question, and I think I'm very happy we made the choice to build a mobile app for multiple reasons. One, like no one had done it, so it was like very unique, and that got us a lot of organic traction online, even without like putting our names behind it. Two, it's way easier to get started. You know, you see an ad, you see a video, and most of the time you're consuming content on your phone.
On your phone, yeah.
You can just download the app versus like, you know, remember to go to this website later. Three, like, where do you use your apps? It's on your phone. So testing them in like a web browser or desktop application limits the types of apps that you can build. Like, how do you test the camera? You know, like if you try any other tool that allows you to do this, you can't test the camera. You can't test like API access for like phone data, like contacts, calendar, location, right? Like one of the biggest personal use apps that one of our users made was like they made a Strava clone that allows them to track their runs, and they made it like like whatever features they want, and they also like wanted to customize it because they wanted to like choose the different shoes that they have and how that affects the run. So like I don't know anything about running, but like, you know, like that kind of stuff would not be possible if you don't have like persistent background location, which is like only possible on mobile. So I think those three are sort of the biggest reasons. And then like fourth, kind of like similar to the second reason I mentioned, but like it's just so much more approachable, so much more easier to like get started, and it's like a good way to ease into this very new thing that's vibe coding. And so I think being mobile first is going to be something that's in our company's culture and like product for a very long time. That being said, I think how we want to grow this company is like we probably want to be the place where you can build any type of software, regardless of what that is. And I think for that vision, it's like, you know, we'd probably need a web application, a desktop application, something.
Yeah, that's really interesting. No, I mean, I think the mobile first bet is absolutely the right move. I mean, I just think about like, well, I mean, for starters, one thing that you pointed out that I never even thought about, but the like content to ad conversion problem is so real when you're on a website.
Yeah.
Like it is genuinely so real. And if you can take someone to an app, it's huge. But even beyond that, I think it's pretty interesting how a lot of I mean, we're going to get into the whole, like the space of code generation and how many people are there and sort of how you see it. But a lot of those guys, broadly speaking, right, have just not touched mobile at all. But mobile is huge. Like, you know, like all the apps we use every day is just on our phone. And so it's really surprising and very neat that you guys are there. I think it puts you in a really strong position. But I suppose on this point, some of what you shared already is going to be an answer to some of these questions. But an area that founders dislike to talk about the most, but I think people who are interested in working at companies like to talk about the most is competition, right? And so obviously the code generation space is not only like the hottest space, I think it's probably the only space that has had like some meaningful big outcomes so far in like
Yeah.
the AI startup scene, right? Um, and so there's a lot of these code gen tools out there. As the founder of one of them, where do you see Vibecode sitting in the mix of like some of the more popular ones, right? Like the ones I'll actually name and are like Lovable, Replit, and Cursor. This question is less of like give me a head-on-head response to everyone, right? But more so like, where does Vibecode sit in the market map of code gen tools?
Yeah, I think, if you were drawing a market map right now, you can like broadly categorize um the kinds of companies into like one, the audience, like is it for beginners, is it
Yes.
for developers, and then the complexity of use, or like, you know, I guess that's the same thing, but like the complexity of the types of applications
Yeah.
that you can build, which is like, you know, from like just like one type of product, like Lovable,
Yeah.
to like anything like Cloud Code or Cursor.
Cursor. Yeah.
Um, and so, on one side you have like Cloud Code, Cursor, like even like Devin, which is like probably a little bit easier to use, but like they're all like, you can build anything, but they're like pretty much like for developers.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you have like Replit, Lovable, Bolt, which allow you to build like websites really well.
Yeah.
And like Replit allows you to do a little bit more, but like Lovable and Bolt, for example, like
Yeah.
focus on websites. So it's like kind of limiting what you have to build. Lovable, for example, didn't really have like really what we call an agent until very recently.
Yes.
And they just like announced that, right? And so I think everyone's thinking about this in like the typical trade-offs of AI companies where like, if you go down the chain like to like a easy to use product, then you have to give up some of the power.
Yeah.
I think the way that we wanted to build this is we wanted to build the best agent possible. So we took like, inspiration from like how Claude Code and Cursor built their agents and built it the exact same way. So our agent thinks a lot more, does a lot more work, and spends a lot more time like just deliberating on like what to produce before producing code compared to any other agent that's doing similar things to us. Yes, that makes things a little bit slower, but I think that works for our case
Yeah.
because CodeGen Mobile we aim for it to be asynchronous, right? You type in a prompt, you leave the app,
Yeah.
you do whatever you want in real life or on your phone, browse TikTok, browse Twitter, and then come back to it. So it's okay if it takes a little bit longer. But like we just wanted the quality to be really high. So we focused on two things. One is like making the agent really, really good that can do anything. And then two, making it like super, super simple to use. And I think as I think about competition and as we scale up, I think I want to keep those two things true, which is one, like we are the easiest platform to get started, but two, we're the most powerful thing where you can build literally anything.
Yeah.
And so I think the ambition that other companies have so far is like limited. Like I feel like ChatGPT should have been like, just dominated every single type of
Yeah.
consumer AI use case, including coding,
Code writing. Yeah.
but they never did because you know um I don't need to get into that, but like I think I saw this on some other podcast, but like apparently they're hiring a lot of designers from Apple, and they're hiring a lot of people from Apple to like refine the ChatGPT product.
Yeah.
And that's what you do when you have like a mature product. But ChatGPT launched like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like not nearly a mature product, and they're like treating it as like this like fully stable built out thing. And like every time they add new features, just add another like
Yeah.
little icon in ChatGPT,
Yeah.
which is like it's rough because that's not how you can get like mass adoption from users. And if you're like really limiting what's possible with
Yeah.
with that kind of product, I think that's sad. So for our case, we want to be able to build like all kinds of software and be like the best like agentic way to do that. That is completely for people who don't need to know how to code,
Yeah.
don't need to see the code. But we want to like, yeah, just be the most powerful and simple. So we want to sort of sit a little bit different on that market map and like
Yeah.
question like these assumptions that all the companies are exhibiting, which is like, do you really need to be worse performance to be simple. Like, and I
Simple.
don't
Yeah.
think that's true, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And I mean, this in a way kind of like almost refutes the next question I had, right? Because, you know, the difference between you and like Lovable or Bolt or whatever is clearly like that mobile app thing.
Yeah.
And it's huge. I actually think you didn't even touch on it enough almost, right? Which is like just being able to like, for those who haven't, really should try out Vibecode. Like you make it and the app gets deployed. There's no expo. There's
Yeah.
there's none of that like scanning the QR code and waiting for that thing to show up,
Yeah.
right? Like, which is huge. And those products do not offer that. And we're gonna dive into that in a second. But the question I did have was a little bit around that like trade-off, which you're saying doesn't exist. But I'm curious, right? Like for people who are for you gave me like 3 customer profiles early on, right?
Yeah.
And the last 2 were like people who are making businesses or people who are building internal tools for those
Yeah.
businesses. Like, do you believe that those people don't want to just be on like Cursor and Replit? Wouldn't they want like more granular control over like the code that they're writing since it is for a business use case? Or you don't think that's really necessary?
Um, I think they might, but like if even, most of them are non-technical, so
Yeah,
it's not like they can do anything
they can,
much
yeah,
with the code.
open an ID and
Uh,
stuff is stuff that yeah.
yeah, and I think right now a lot of people like export their project from like Lovable and Replit or even like Bolt to like Cursor because they're like, oh, like I couldn't solve this bug on Lovable or like
Yeah,
V0 or anything,
yeah,
and I exported a Cursor and then Cursor one-shotted it. Like that's the
yeah,
typical experience you see, and the reason why that is quite simply like Cursor allows you to pick models, and so you can like choose which model is the best one for the task. Two, like Cursor's agent is a lot more agentic, and Claude Code is like even more agentic, and
yeah.
that's why it's like so much more better. Um, and so it does a lot more thinking, it does a lot more like processing, web searching, and like gathers correct context and like to solve that problem compared to like Bolt and Lovable, which like try to like one shot everything.
Watch everything, yeah.
Um, and so I think for those ICPs, right, like if you're able to just solve that problem, like they won't need to go to these other tools. And I don't think we're there yet, but like that's our goal is like, hey, like let's build the best agent possible, and you can deploy any kinds of software here, and you can really do whatever that you might be able to do in Cursor, but like it's meant for
Yeah,
non-developers, right?
yeah.
Cloud Code again meant for developers. Like Cursor, they say it again and again. We're like a developer company or a developer tool, and like that makes sense because if they're like trying to do it for like that's a big sort of switch in the roadmap.
Yeah,
But like our focus is like, hey, we're for consumers, we're for non-developers, and like you know, just like Cursor is seeing a lot of non-developers use our product. I think we're going to see a lot of developers use our product.
yeah,
Because at least for me, like I don't want to see the code if I don't have to.
yeah, yeah.
Like I don't want to be reading all that like, rainbow colored like text on my screen. Like
A bunch of red squiggly lines everywhere.
yeah, I'd rather be like, out at dinner, like vibe coding on my phone
Yeah,
every 10 minutes. I, get a notification and, quickly turn away, type the prompt, or like even do it in like group activity or like, maybe
yeah,
dinner is a bad example, but like I'd rather do it in a way that's like um more fun and less mind numbing, which is like kind of what coding ends up being
yeah, yeah,
oftentimes.
yeah. Something I wanted to touch on a little bit here too is, the last mile step for a lot of these is like the big thing. I mean, you talked about it, right? People go on Lovable or Bolt or whatever. They'll wrangle with their website, then they can't solve it. And now they have to figure out how to export and go to Cursor. And if they're not a developer, this is a nightmare. And also just like that final step of like deploying and managing and all that is hard, right? I'd love for you to kind of talk about like the work you guys have done there because for mobile there's even an additional step before that, which is like you have to like deploy the app, right?
Yeah.
And have like an instance of it that you can open and play around with, something that like Expo Simulator lets you do, right? What is happening behind the scenes for you guys when someone types in a couple prompts, gets their app made? What happens?
Yeah. So I do want to, before we jump into that, I do want to say like one thing that we offer that like no other
Yeah.
AI coding company offers right now is 24/7 technical customer support. Any
Oh,
of our paid users can message a chat that's on 24/7, and these are real developers who will go into your project and fix any issue that you
oh
have.
wow. Okay. Yeah.
And so the reason why we decided to do that is because the models, quite frankly, aren't like
Yeah.
100% there yet. And so it's stopgap to like help people get their products to production while the models are still like not 100% there yet. And so we're going to continue offering that. I think that's like a big part of something that we want to do. Um, and so, yeah, we're here to help you. We want to help people get to a point of success. Two, it's with mobile apps, deployment is a lot harder.
Yes.
You have to get through Apple review. You have to like make this like Apple developer account. It's not like a web app where you can just like deploy it easily.
Yeah.
Um, Even web apps, like I think deployment is like one of the hardest things
Yeah.
people are stuck with. So, I think the way that we are solving that right now is like through app clips. So Apple has this like very cool feature where you can share like a fully native iOS app with other people um, via this thing called an app clip, which is like a mini app essentially. And so you right now could build an app and share with anyone else, and it would open like as an app, not as a website, but like as an app on someone's phone without them downloading anything. And yeah, that's part of app clips. So we're using those really heavily. We've seen a lot of people like using those as like ways to share apps with friends, which have been pretty cool. Um, but we're doing more work around like getting your app to the app store and
Yeah.
like helping with that. Um, and like, helping that like last mile deployment, because that problem is like way harder than even web apps.
Yeah.
But for a lot of use cases that you basically, for every single use case where you don't want to make money, just using an app clip makes more sense.
Makes more sense. Yeah.
Um, the
But
only
this worked
limitation,
for like sharing apps too, right?
yeah,
Like
you can just
you
share.
just have to like text it or something.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
text it. It's a link. You can share it. You can also like add apps that you make or other people share with you.
But I'm assuming app clips like prevents you from trying to monetize it. That's what you
Yeah,
meant by
yeah,
you want. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Of
So
course,
that
Apple does. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Apple is they're a great company. They've done they've, they they are amazing. I love Apple, and I don't
Yeah.
want to ever break any of the rules. So
Absolutely.
we care about the Apple developer
Yeah.
guidelines
Yeah.
very, very, very strongly.
Yeah. The 30% split is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's the best business model ever.
No, that makes complete sense. But for this, like even being able to like just test out the app as it's being built inside of your phone, like how did you guys do this? Like, did you reverse engineer Expo? Like, are you guys using the same thing that they do? Like, for someone that doesn't have much of a background in any of this, like, explain this to me because to me that was like a pretty magical experience when I first saw it happen.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that big of a deal, and I'm making
No,
a
it
big
is
deal.
like
But yeah,
no one had thought about doing that. That's the
yeah,
hard part. Too, like there were kind of some technologies to do that, like you mentioned Expo,
yeah,
where you could like have this like pre-compiled
yeah,
native code, and then you could have like this small layer like of JavaScript on top of it, which would change like the layout of the app, the functionality, but like all the native code is like pre-compiled. So we basically, yeah, Expo is open source, they're great.
yep.
The Expo founder CEO Charlie's an investor in us, so
Oh wow,
we
okay.
love
Yeah,
Expo. And I've been working with Expo for 5 years, and so yeah, I think the way we first solved it was like we just looked at how Expo did it,
yeah,
and we kind of just did like forked Expo and like made our own version, and that itself was pretty hard because like Expo is not meant to be used like this.
yeah.
Expo, um, this is like more like it it doesn't really make sense for you to like have like an AI like backend system that's like swapping out these bundles on your phone. So that was like pretty hard and interesting.
Yeah.
We were like the first people to do that, and now we've inspired a lot of other people, and they can like do it. It's still a lot harder to do than like making a web app though, and so that is like slightly good thing. Like my co-founder built Lovable in like 2 hours
Which is
with
all over
with
Twitter and
Cloud
YouTube
Code,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But like it would it would be pretty hard for him to do that with Expo. just because the technical knowledge required to do that is quite a few steps higher than
Yeah.
a web app, which is like, oh, you put an iframe in a web app, and then you send like your AI prompts to some sort of like sandbox runner. Uh, the core concepts are the same though. So yeah, I mean that was like actually like a very magical moment, and now it's like just dimmed down. But like even for me, it's like the first time I saw it happen, I was like, this is insane. Like you can just literally make an app on your phone. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy that's possible.
Yeah. It is a really big deal
Yeah.
that it works the way it works. I mean, you touched upon it a little bit. I mean, this was obviously a hard problem. Getting a little bit more into like the actual building process of doing this and the team and the problems you've solved. Is that the toughest technical problem you guys had to crack to make Vibecode work, or was there something else? Like what was kind of the really hard thing here that you guys crack that isn't trivial and you don't think many other teams could really crack?
Yeah, I mean, I think technically speaking, like I've said like multiple times, I think technology and like software is like the supply is just being commoditized. So maybe that's not something I would consider a big moat anymore. But I think there are three key technical things that are all like very difficult that we had to solve to make this happen. One is like, how do you get this app to run on your phone um with like but being compiled somewhere else? So the one that you just laid out, I think that was interesting. We had tried three different approaches. Can't really get into the details, but like first approach we launched and it was working, but there were a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Second approach again launched. We scaled that to like, our first 100K in revenue. That was like a large part of the like our beta program. Like, but again, like every time we did it, there were new issues.
Yeah.
And the third time, like we just rebuilt everything from scratch and we're able to like actually get it to a good point. And that's so the app that you're using right now. So it took a lot of iteration there. And I think other teams are realizing that because they're going through the same iteration process.
Yeah.
But it takes a few months to like actually, get to a point that we have. Two, again, same thing will happen, but on the infrastructure side of things, all AI coding companies, all they do is like they're running a server in the cloud where your code is executed and created. You need sandboxes. You don't want it to run like in a non-sandbox environment because of security issues, etc. Building that in a safe, secure, and scalable way is like really, really hard. And there are products that do that, like E2B and Daytona. At the point that we were scaling, was like unreliable for us to use other products, and so we really had to build our own solution for that, and that was pretty hard. And so, like one of the people on our team, he was at Google before, like when I was like 2 years old. Like he, is one of the craziest infrastructure engineers ever. And so he has built these kinds of systems for like Docker and like Neuro and like a bunch of other companies. And so he was able to really help us like build this like very scalable infrastructure that I think is going to be very important for the next steps of our company, where we like allow people to build all kinds of software. So yeah, second piece was infrastructure. And then the third piece was the agent, right? I think a lot of other competitors in the space, especially the ones that got early traction, like Bolt and Lovable, they did not spend a lot of time on their agent. And they were like, oh, let's just build like a few API calls and like, call it a day.
Yeah.
And, now they're obviously going back on that. Lovable just launched a new agent and they're like spending a lot of time making their agent really, really good. That was like a priority from day one. We weren't like, our benchmark was like, how do we get this as good as Cursor?
Yeah.
And I think we were able to beat that. But now the benchmark has moved, which is like Cloud Code. And like Cloud Code is like a very, very well built agent. And we're like we hope to be like, at that level, if not higher from our agent performance. But like, yeah, just keeping the agent really, really good can give you like anywhere from like a 10 to like 30, maybe even 40% boost in output compared to just like using the raw model.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that go into that, like prompting, tooling, like architecture design, like concurrency of agents, sub agents, like all this like stuff that's going to get even more and more complicated. Like, we're seeing people exploring that already with like, plan mode and, spec-driven development. So there are a lot of different paradigms that are coming out. People are like writing research papers about it, but like you need to test them out. You need to get them into production. You need to like really, really figure out like, and it's hard to write evals for this kind of stuff because a lot of the real world development. Like we have like thousands of projects that our users created that have more commits than all our repos as a company combined.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is an interesting fact. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have thousands of projects that have like thousands and thousands of commits. And like our company, all our repos are like at the hundreds of commits. So it's insane. Like it's hard. Like, how do you eval that, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you eval like a 5,000 commit project? Like you're not gonna spend that much, like 3 months, like
Yeah.
running an eval. So it's very, very hard for us to value these things, but we just need to. So I think it's hard for anyone, but yeah, we just need to like making an agent really, really good is a very hard problem that not a lot of people have been able to crack. So I think all of those three things are like technical problems that we're to solve. But I think where our team really shines is like the growth side of things.
Yes.
So, but we can jump into that later.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, actually, this is perfect timing. I'd love to jump in. I mean, seems like you guys have the technical people. I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. It sounds like you have someone who was working at Google and you were 2 years old on your team, which is quite interesting. But yeah, tell me a little bit more about the team behind all of this, right? Like, what is the team you guys have assembled? Maybe starting with the founding team and then some of the folks that maybe you're hiring. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we're three co-founders, me, Kihan, and Riley. So Kihan's our CDO. He's like the brain behind the agent. You saw him build a lovable clone in 2 hours. Like he basically spent 2 months building our agent. So like, imagine how good that is, if he can do that. So yeah, he's sort of the brains behind that. He's worked at startups, he worked in big tech, but he's got a lot of like more of a higher level critical thinking kind of background, and he's able to construct these like really complicated like tooling around these agents. So he's really good at that stuff. Then we have Riley.
Not to sorry, continue, my bad.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna give out compliments, but I'll do that after the question.
Okay. And then Riley's like literally the first person ever who like vibe coded in public. Like I saw his post like last summer before like vibe coding was a thing, and I was like, holy shit, this guy is literally building apps without having any idea of that code. And he was copy pasting code from like ChatGPT into like an IDE and running it. I was like, how does he even like how is this code even working? Like it was crazy to me that was even possible. And so even before that, he was like one of the first people to like bring AI news and education to the mainstream on TikTok and Instagram, where he got like over 1 million followers. So he's like a really good educator and like really like brings this to the masses. When you see his audience, it's like very, very interesting, the makeup of it. But yeah, he's very good at taking these complicated ideas and conveying it to people and like educating and inspiring them. Those are the two things that we want to do with our content: educate and inspire. That's super, super important to us. Is like like I mentioned previously, like we're at like the 0.1% of people in the US know what vibe coding is. How do we get to like the 10, 20, 30% that ChatGPT is at, which will happen over the next like 1 to 2 years? It took ChatGPT 3 years. It might take vibe coding a little bit longer than that, since it's a little bit more complicated. But how do we get there? And I think Riley's going to be at the forefront of that. He already is.
He already is, yes.
Yeah.
Famous guy.
Yeah. And then the rest of the team, like, we have some really amazing engineers. Like, I was mentioning Jake, who's doing infrastructure. We worked together at Blue Sky, and he basically scaled the infra from like 0 users when we were working together to like 20 million users, like 20 million monthly active users, which is like insane infra. Like, usually you require like teams and teams of people to do that. It was just him. So he's very, very good at that. And then, we have a few other like amazing engineers. Like we have an XYC founder. We have someone who made like a very similar app as a solo dev. And then he joined our team. Like he was able to like launch and ship a very, very good like sort of clone of Vibecode like very quickly. And then we're on the process of bringing in a designer and maybe a couple more engineers, but like we're just keeping the team like very small. And I think we're able to achieve a lot with just like the small team we have so far.
And what about yourself?
Oh, I think my expertise has always been in like mobile apps and React Native. I've just spent my whole software engineering career just focused on that, and I think I'm quite good at that. So I've built many apps that had millions of users and know how to scale teams and architectures for that. So that's sort of my background. But quite frankly, I don't like coding. I still code every day. I think because we just have so much to ship. But I love building things that people use. But if I don't have to see the code, I would never see the code. That's why I love Vibecode.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, Ansh does a really, really good job of underselling himself. I mean, this is probably one of the best programmers I know. A little fun story I have about Ansh actually is the way I met you was through Z Fellows,
yeah,
right? We met through Z Fellows. This was like a while back,
yeah,
and Ansh was pretty much like the in-house like bug solver for every any bug you ever had. Like it was like a safety net. Like when I was working on my first startup, it was like if we couldn't solve anything, I was like, hey, let's give this, one more day and we'll just give it to Ansh and it'll be solved. So when I heard that you were building an app that builds mobile apps, I was like, he's just building Ansh. so Ansh has just really built himself here. Another thing that you kind of undersold is your experience of company building. You've been early at a lot of companies that have become very, very big and have scaled to millions and millions of people. And so I think you at your age probably know a lot more about company building than most people. What is your approach to company building that you think is a little bit different from others?
I think specifically for Vibecode, the way that we're building this company is like being very, very heavy into content. So, how do we make sure that everyone in the team is educating and inspiring people to make cool stuff? And so, content is like 50% of the time, energy, money that we spend, which is like way higher than any other technology company. And I think that's really, really important. But on a more meta level about like the whole company, I think about company building very differently than I think a lot of people do, in the sense that I'm very, very generous with equity, like multiple percentage points, even at our current capital raise valuation.
Yeah.
Like trying to get the best deal for like employees. Like how do you make sure that, they can qualify for like QSBS and that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which most founders like just don't pay attention to, especially now that we're seeing these crazy news
Yeah, yeah.
with founders leaving their company.
Team behind, yeah.
But yeah, I think I just like being very generous with
Yeah.
equity. I'd rather have like the team have like a lot of equity. And then I think it's actually very important that everyone in the team is friends and close, which like a lot of people will be like, oh, that's like bad. Like you shouldn't like mix business and like friendship and that kind of stuff. But like Kihan's like one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And one of our other early engineers, one of my best friends. Like, another engineer, I've known him for a really long time. Like I think it, and then our designer is again one of our best friends.
Yeah.
Like we are literally like assembling like our smartest friends and working together. And like it will be like risky, but like everyone is like super loyal to each other, to the company, and they wouldn't like quite frankly join if it wasn't something that was interesting, because they're the ones who can tell me to my face like, this is a stupid idea, you don't know what you're doing, like, and they have like in the past. But I think the fact that they believe in what we're building and they believe in me and themselves and the rest of the team to execute on this big vision that we have speaks a lot more volumes than like someone random who you can like sell to and like sell and convince. Because you can be like a great salesman, like sort of convince, like you anyone can make their startup sound like literally the best thing in the world to like a half like decent smart kid from like any of these like sort of top schools or like companies. If you manage to raise a lot of money, like you have that skill set, but like selling to your own friends is like it's a lot more implicit. They've seen everything, so they know the good, the bad, and everything. So I think those two things, like very, very generous with equity and keeping the team very closely knit, I think separates us from any other sort of company that is being built.
Yeah. It's great that you bring up content because you guys are really heavy on content, and which is great because I feel like the learning that most founders have after maybe, doing a company once or twice is distribution is everything, right? And so it's huge that you guys are doing that. I'd love for you to kind of expand like what does the content experience look like today? Like I know Riley's obviously at the forefront. How much time actually do you guys like spend on this on a daily basis? What type of content are you putting out would be great for folks who aren't familiar. And then one other follow-up question on this is, what do you think are maybe some like caveats that come with content, right? Because there are some new teams out there that are all content, right? A lot of content out there, right?
Yeah.
And tech Twitter has become like the home of launch videos and stunts and all that. And that's not to say that those, some of those teams are actually doing really well. Some maybe aren't, whatever the case may be. But, do you think all content's great? Like, because I sometimes actually question that a little bit, right? Where I'm like, well, you got a lot of views, but did that convert to the actual
Yeah.
people you're going after? So do you guys think about that? Like, are you going after like specific audiences, or is it like how many views can I just collect in the month? Like, what is the content strategy?
Yeah, I think we're like we faced a lot of those problems too, right? We've gotten a lot of views. Like we got 10 million views last month. Like
Uh,
the conversions were definitely a problem. Like,
yeah,
quite frankly, with those views and short form at least, right?
yeah,
But then we have like a lot of like educational long form content. So really what's working for us is like like educate people because like they're still so new. People like barely know how to use these tools. Like
yeah,
you're technical, I'm technical. We're like, oh, we'll fire up Cloud Code and Cursor and like just
yeah,
make this like app in like 2 days, right? But like, the people who are actually going to benefit from this, like to an even greater magnitude, like maybe it's like a 10x improvement to us. The people who it is 1000x improvement to, like they're like, what is Cursor? Like, oh my God, this is so scary. What's a terminal? Like, how do I like npm install? Like,
yeah, yeah,
what is Next.js? What is like? They don't know any of this stuff.
yeah,
So making content around like to educate them is
yeah.
is really important. And like right now, I think in the company, like almost every engineer is like spending at least 1 day a week
Oh,
making
wow.
content.
Okay.
And so, we have
It's a whole company effort. It's not just right.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
a whole company effort. And Riley's done a really good job of like
yeah,
making sure
yeah,
that like we do that. And so he does a lot of the planning,
yeah,
filming, and then, we are doing a lot of stuff to make sure like that content is like actually useful for people.
yeah.
So yeah, that's one side of things. And then what was the second question?
I mean, that kind of, one, it was like the content strategy you guys
Right,
have,
right,
right? And
right.
so
Yeah,
it
and
sounds
then
like it's making more informational
yeah,
videos and less maybe just
yeah,
general, like, hype videos or
yeah.
whatever. And then two is like the focus on conversion. And you kind of mentioned how you guys have gotten a lot of views, but maybe, last month the conversions weren't up to what you
Yeah, I mean,
wanted.
we've tried the strategy that everyone's doing because we've done that like many times,
Yeah,
like the short form, like the content on TikTok and Instagram. And the reality is like for most of these kinds of products, it's just not probably not converting for them.
yeah,
Like it's so that's fine. Like we're still going to experiment. Like there's always like 20% of the budget that's going to
yeah,
these experiments.
yeah,
But yeah, the stuff that's really a bread and butter, the stuff that's working, the stuff that no one else is doing, quite frankly, is like education
yeah,
and like inspiration content, which is like I don't know why anyone else isn't
yeah,
doing that, but that's really what
yeah.
is working.
Yeah. Especially for code writing, like those communities on like YouTube and Reddit
Yeah,
and
they're
Discord,
so
they're
big.
huge, right? Like, and now they're on Instagram, right? And there's a lot of influencers that do this or have big follow. Riley's one of them, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you guys have been really smart with that, which is great. I guess maybe going a little bit into like the types of apps, and this is less of a question that I think maybe affects Vibecode, and maybe it's just like the AI code generation as a whole. I think a lot of people, honestly, at one point, I think I was in this camp too, had like this, and maybe some of this was like an initial like defensive mechanism to like
Yeah.
seeing my skill get automated so quickly, right? I was like, well, these AI built apps they're kind of like slop. They're not ready for prime time, right? Like security, performance. Have you noticed that? Is that like the case at all? Like when you look at apps right now, you're like, oh, they're great and they're great for single usage and for like a use case, but like, yeah, they're not really like ready for production, or is that like changing?
Yeah, I mean, it's changing. Like you can keep saying that and you can keep saying that, and then one day you'll be like, oh shit, I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
And have we reached that day where like I'm wrong? Is no, it's not
yeah,
that day yet, but it will happen. And so you can sort of be a naysayer for as long as you want, and it's like kind of like crying wolf, right? Like one day
yeah,
the wolf will actually come, like the tide is going to shift. The tide is not shifted yet. There is obviously some level of like polish and technique and just like understanding that separates like a vibe coded app from not vibe coded app.
yeah,
That being said, like every day is like getting closer and closer to finish.
yeah.
Will this be like self-driving cars where it takes like 10 years for like the last 1% to be finished? I don't know. I don't think so because the problems are less about like a human actually dying.
Yeah, they're less.
But still, I mean,
Yeah,
it's pretty bad. Like we saw with the T app where
yeah, 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 yeah.
a bunch of data got leaked.
Yeah.
But like that kind of stuff happened even before
For
Viper
yeah,
was a
yeah.
thing.
So I guess to narrow in on the question a little bit, what are maybe like what is like that delta left? Like what is this like last mile that you're like, okay, this is still a problem,
Yeah.
and isn't there?
I think security is a big
Okay.
one,
Yeah.
but that's mostly because of the tooling that people are using.
I see.
So they start off using things like Superbase, like the most popular
Yeah.
type of database. And Superbase, if you like, if you start it up and then you start in test mode, like it just like kind of like shows you all your data, like without any security. And they're like, they make you need to be very technical to add security to Superbase because it's like row level security. So just like the tooling, I think around database, data storage, authentication is like a big thing, API keys. So making that easier is probably, I would say, sort of the big delta that's left. And then two, it's just like how do you convert human intent into real products?
Yeah.
What I mean by that is like users oftentimes are not very good at prompting.
Yeah.
And so they might like try to do too much in a prompt, or they might like not be specific enough, or any of these like a whole host of problems. And so really like will people get better at prompting? And this was a big thing like 2 years ago, and maybe no one's talking about it right now, which is like prompting while prompt engineering. Like how do you like actually write good prompts? It's more in demand for skill now than ever. And I think that's going to take a little bit of time until like the tide shifts there, where like people like intuitively, especially younger people, will probably like understand how to talk to AI
Yes.
better. And that's going to be a thing that's going to be a thing for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so I think those are probably the two things, is like, as a technical person, you just know how to talk to AI better, and you can build literally anything without any code. But like, yeah, security is sort of the next big thing.
Yeah.
And then I think deployment is also a little challenging. Like, how do you get from this like testing use case to production use case? But again, that's like more of like a tooling problem.
Yeah.
Like the models are like basically there.
Yeah. And are you guys doing anything on like on these three fronts? Like are you guys building out any products to help with security or help with like prompt building? Maybe some of this already happens on the back end with the system prompt, or integrations.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I don't think I can share that stuff right now, but yeah, we're gonna make it. We have like some really innovative ideas on how to get user intent that I don't think anyone has ever tried so far. Cloud Code has come close. That's the hint I'll give you.
Okay.
And then two, in terms like integrations with like backends and stuff. Again, no one's done what we're going to do. I don't know why. It just like, there are a lot of times like building this company where I'm like, this is like the obvious thing to do. Why has no one done it?
Yeah.
And then we do it like with like building a mobile app first approach.
Yeah.
And it just like works out. So, I don't know, maybe, I'm stupid or like just lucky, but like, yeah, there's just like so many like obvious things. So there's one very obvious thing there. It's like basically using this provider that no one else has used with like very little guardrail, like to make sure security is like basically non-issue, because there is very easy way to do security well. And then around deployment, I think that's a pretty hard challenge, but we're working on solving that. I think that's just will take some time to get to good stuff. Yeah.
One thing that I've spoken to Riley about before is kind of like, regular apps versus what he calls AI apps. Could you maybe talk about like what Vibecode views as like an AI app, and like what are these, future of like AI native apps that people will be building that you guys are sort of at the forefront of allowing people to build?
Yeah. So one thing with Vibecode that you can do is you can prompt it to build any app with any AI model, with any AI feature, without like putting any API keys. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. You can just say, make me a ChatGPT clone into Vibecode, and it will make you a ChatGPT clone, and it'll work. That's like one of literally our default prompts. So like it works literally.
And I don't have to give you like an OpenAI.
No, nothing. So I think basically every app will have some sort of AI feature into it. And so we just want to make it super easy to build like AI features. And AI features just make consumer applications like so much better.
Yes.
Because it actually provides value. Like we have seen this like whole new wave of like consumer startups building AI apps, and they're making so much more money than consumer startups of the past, where there were like very few limited ideas. And that's really just because like AI just makes the product experience like 10 times better with like basically any domain, like workout tracking, recipe tracking, losing weight, like all of this like core human desire type of consumer applications. But one thing that hasn't been explored is like instead of just like an API call for like OpenAI or something, like what if your like backend was an agent and the agent had access to multiple tools, like multiple pieces of data sources, like your Google Calendar, your Google email,
Yep.
Notion, or Slack, or it had access to different APIs like scraping Instagram, posting on Twitter, like basically like any action. I think N8N has
Yes.
done a lot there, but I think that it's like again,
Yeah.
they're seeing like astronomical growth in like their audience for like this automation. But why is that? Like two reasons. One, like their UI looks really good.
Yeah.
So like when you like run an automation, like it looks like cool. But two is like they're the first like actual like no code automation tool like Zapier or whatever,
Yeah.
like that allows you to make AI agents as backends.
Yeah.
Where like you can literally do something on your front end app. Like let's say I have a workout app. I like send a photo of like my gym to this, AI agent. Like that AI agent can then do multiple things that a simple API call to OpenAI cannot, which is like
Yeah.
it can fetch data from the web. It can write data to your calendar, maybe like saying that, you're going to the gym. It can connect with any other tools that you give it access to, like maybe storing your workout details in not just your app, but like also spreadsheet for like, maybe a different AI agent to like review and see like your progress. So I think a lot of backends again are just so much better if they have like some sort of agentic workflow where like, you allow an app to um essentially communicate with this agent that can run kind of semi-autonomously.
Yeah. And so you guys want to build that out.
Yeah,
and give that as a tool that anyone can put into their apps.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we are thinking about doing. So I think that's gonna be pretty big.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that could become like the meat of the company, really. Is like to have this like back end that's AI, right? Yeah, it's like AI agentic native, and apps will just be so much more cracked with what they can do now. A few last questions here before we wrap up. A question that I kind of had is about like kind of some of like what does the future look like here, right? And you talked about it a little bit with like Apple and being able to like deploy to the App Store and things like that. Is there a world where you could also have like your own marketplace of some sort, like within Vibecode, where users can share the apps they built? Obviously, monetization and stuff still has to go through Apple because it's on the App Store. But I'm curious, like, are you guys building features that make it really easy to share apps?
Yeah. I mean, that's like one of the core actions is like sharing apps. It's not we don't want to create a marketplace on iPhones just because we're not an app store.
Yeah.
On iOS devices. That being said, like as we expand the types of products that can be built with Vibecode beyond, the types of mobile apps that can be built today, we hope to be able to make this shareable, and we hope to make this like something that people can remix. I think that's going to be really huge. It's like this concept of remixable software.
Yeah. And it goes into the whole personalization thing you said earlier.
Yeah, people have a lot of similar ideas, but with a slightly different twist to it.
Yeah.
That's like probably the most common sort of use case. So I think remixing is even bigger than sharing.
Yeah.
It's like really people want to like take something and then like change a little bit and then use it. That's going to be huge. I think that's going to be something we're going to see hopefully a lot of growth from.
Yeah.
And we're definitely focused on making that happen.
That's such an interesting concept, actually, because I think the Arc browser had this for a little bit where you could like change the color of your Spotify or something. It wasn't anything too deep. I think they're just playing around with HTML. But there's been so many times where like even on the Instagram app or something where I'm like, I wish like the heart for where I can check my activity was down here or something. It's kind of cool to think that like 90% of apps in the future are built from Vibecode. And like really every app could just be customizable. Like you could open any app and there's a button that lets you just change things around, which is really cool to think about.
It'll be pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's not just apps. It can be anything. It can be like workflows, automations. Yeah. And when we get into that kind of stuff, like your agents, like it's going to be some like pretty crazy stuff that you can like really build and remix. So yeah, it's very exciting what's possible with this idea of like remixing software.
Yeah. And I guess this kind of transitions well into, what the next 5 years look like, but especially in terms of work. Obviously, a lot of people who are listening are people who are interested in trying to find what startup they should be working at. And the big thing for a lot of really great engineers or operators or talent in general is, what will I be working on, right? So if someone was to join Vibecode today, what will they be working on? What are the big open problems still left?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this tooling needs to be built.
Yep.
So a lot of infrastructure around like database hosting, deployment to App Store, making sure the generations are high quality, reliable. All of that stuff has a lot of work to do. Exploring like different like product surfaces, like what's next after mobile apps is like a whole unexplored thing that we're definitely interested in. So like a lot of like stuff to build on the product side, a lot of stuff to build on the infrastructure side, and then even like the AI agent stuff, right? We want to take part in more of the stack. I think if things are going to go as they are right now, there is like a future where we build our own model. We're seeing that, like, for example, Vercel and V0, they built their own like hyper specialized model that's really good at Next.js.
Yes.
And so if we can do that for like Expo React Native, that could be like really, really interesting. So I do see a world where we like either like fine tune an open source model, like these like Kimi K2, Quen 3 coder, they're getting really, really good.
Yeah.
And so if that's catching up, but like it seems like, Anthropic and OpenAI just have a little bit of a leg up at all points.
Yeah.
That's probably how it's going to be for the next few years. But pricing is obviously something that is a thing that every single AI application developer is thinking about, is like how you make sure that like your margins make sense. And so from a business perspective, I think building our own model it might be like a really important thing in the future. So that's something that we haven't even explored at all. But yeah, really, like we have these sort of three kind of, frontiers that like a lot needs to be done. Like product, it's like really thinking about, okay, like you can literally build any software and you can build it on your phone, and then you can also, work on it on your computer in the future. How do you really make that interface super simple for people to get started with, super simple for people to share? And like what kinds of like software can you build? Because it doesn't end in mobile apps. There's so much software to be built. Like there's so many things that people want. A lot of like really, it's just like apps, workflows, automations, like those are the kinds of things that we're going to explore there. And then infrastructure wise, like how do you make sure people are able to deploy safely, securely, all these problems I mentioned, but security problems around like, storing data, authorization, like that's going to be really interesting. We're starting it with an approach, obviously not building our own database, but like I think there's a lot of cool work that can be done there to make these apps really good. And we're seeing some really like AI first infra companies, which is super exciting. Like we're literally seeing like AI first databases. They're like, and I think we should see more of this, where like the syntax is like very similar to old libraries. Like the syntax is very similar to stuff that AI knows already.
Yeah.
But then on the back end, it's like way more optimized for the stuff that AI is not good at, which is like AI's, you shouldn't like overload context. I think context management's always going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's going to be huge.
No matter how big the context window gets, obviously, if you have something in the middle of a context window, it's like not like the language model is just not going to pay as much attention to it. So how do you convey a lot of information with like a little bit of context? I think Cursor's thinking about this a lot. I think they're thinking about like how do you build your own new programming language?
Yeah.
Which is again like something that should probably happen, will probably happen, but like that might be hard because then the models just need data, but they have data about existing things. So how could you possibly like keep it similar to existing paradigms, but then change the backend such that it's a lot easier to use and solves a lot of problems, right? Like we can go into that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But like, and then the agent side of things, making the agent like really, really good. Like there's like Cloud Code is set a benchmark, but like Cloud Code should not be the frontier AI. Like it's crazy that Cloud Code just destroyed Cursor, because like Cursor's whole business is building an AI agent with a UI.
Yeah.
And Cloud Code, its whole business is building models, and they just made this like agent that's like way better than any agent. that's ever been built by any other company that are focused on building agents.
Yeah.
Like even like, Devin, Cloud Code shouldn't have been the best agent, but it is.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done to understand, hey, like, how do they get the best agent? How can we make an even better agent than them? Because we should be able to. Like,
Yeah.
we're a hyper specialized sort of domain, and we don't have the restrictions of like this not being like our main thing, because it is one of our main things.
Yeah.
Maybe probably is one of the main things for Anthropic as well now. But yeah, just like really making the agent
Yeah.
better than anything that's existed, and yeah, eventually maybe even training our own models.
Yeah. Well, before ending things, I mean, you've brought up this agent point actually a couple times, and so I am actually curious from your perspective, like, what is a good agent? Like you said, like Claude Code is so much better than Cursor's agent, and some of the other agent companies. Like, what are the improvements that you think those guys can make, and like, what is this like agentic improvement you'd like to see?
I think it's Anthropic just probably really knows how to make an agent that works with the model really well.
Yeah.
But the reason why Cloud Code is so much better than Cursor, for example, is just like it spends a lot more time understanding the context, and it's able to use sub agents pretty effectively. Like, it's able to like spin up other versions of Cloud Code, and now even like other custom sub agents. Like, you can give it a whole backend agent, you can give it a planning agent, you can give it an agent for specific libraries and tools.
And do you think that sub agent is really the unlock, or is it?
I don't
Like the reasoning model behind the scenes is kind of the same, right?
It is the
Using
same.
Claude.
And why is it better? I don't
Okay.
know. Like, if I knew that, like,
That'd be the answer. Yeah.
like, that, like, I would have like done it, but
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. But there is something there where they've been able to like really make sure
Yeah.
that this agent is so much like significantly better than the competition. And I think it is about sort of the architecture. Like, when you use Cloud Code, you just like feel like it's like thinking a lot more
Yeah.
before it like starts doing things.
Yeah.
But not thinking in the sense that's using reasoning tokens. Thinking in the sense that it like explores the code base
Yes.
as a human would. So like one thing they did that no one else, that the others didn't do, is like, for example, Cursor like rags your whole code base, so it like makes this like vector DB of your code base. Cloud Code has no vector DB, so
really?
it just relies on search. So all it does is search your code base. So when you try to do something, it's like, okay,
wait, just like the classic keyword search that's available on the IDE is like what it's doing, like
yeah, like it's just grepping. That's all it does.
okay.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's it like if you say like make this change,
Yeah.
like okay,
I mean, it is always repping when you are looking
Yeah.
at it. It's constantly, yeah.
it just grabs, reads files. It's like, okay, I understand how this works. So it's like kind of like how an engineer would solve the problem versus
Yeah.
like this like all-knowing being that somehow like knows everything about your code
Yeah,
base and
yeah.
like has this like RAG or vector DB search that it's running. It, rather than doing that, it like actually like tries to find keywords and like looks at like the exact files and it's like, okay, like what's this linked to? Like, let me figure out the flow, then let me come up with a plan. That's like another paradigm that I think is interesting. So it's like, I wouldn't say there's like one big thing. It's like a couple of small things. And then the sub agents is like also another thing. The concurrency with like multiple agents running in parallel. So a main cloud agent can be like, hey, agent one, you go search for this. Agent two, do this. Agent three, do this. And those have its own context windows.
Yeah.
Right? Like that stuff is really cool.
Yeah.
So it's not one thing. I would say it's like a combination of all these things, and somehow putting them together has just made it so much better.
Yeah. And so is the goal to kind of hire like some researchers and senior folks to sit and like play with this problem, or is it to kind of just maybe rip it from Claude when they when they make this usable, or like what is the goal on that?
I think the goal is just to test more ideas that no one has tried. And that was what I was hinting at before. There are a few ideas no one has tried that Claude is like kind of trying.
Yeah.
And we think we can take it a step further.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like trying the ideas and like, yeah, just, not worrying about like, shipping something to prod. That might be worse, but like you can just try it out with a small group of users and see how it goes.
Yeah. And then finally, what type of people are you looking to hire? Who should reach out to you? Is it engineers? Is it researchers? Is it folks in content? Like who should be reaching out?
Yeah, I mean, all of the above.
Oh
I
yeah,
think right now the most urgent roles we're hiring for is like someone who has played with AI agents a lot, wants to explore these things, and that's why, like, I think there's so much more to like get out of an agent beyond just the base model, and oftentimes a lot of these agent companies actually make the agents worse than like just an API call to the
yeah,
base model, which is, not the best thing.
yeah,
And we've been guilty of doing that in the past too, but like oftentimes like adding a lot of like junk makes
yes,
it just makes it worse. So yeah, AI agent engineer. So if you played with the AI agents, you tried different paradigms of building AI agents, especially in TypeScript, because that's how
yeah,
our whole agent is built. So that's like the main role we're hiring for right now. We're also looking for like people who want to make content, educational content. They want to inspire the next generation of people. Maybe you're non-technical, maybe you are technical, but you want to like build apps, you want to build different pieces of software, and you just want to like really like showcase like what's possible. And maybe you are a vibe coder yourself. I think that's a great person to hire.
yeah,
And then, in the future, I think this video is gonna probably exist for a while, but we're probably gonna be looking for like infrastructure engineers.
yes,
So do you want to build sort of the deployment and the hosting and the database authentication security infrastructure for these agents to securely run code and like host programs? I think that's going to be really interesting. And then on the product side, are you like a really talented iOS
yeah,
or web engineer and you want to like build something that's like completely new product paradigm that's not been done before, like especially like the simplicity and the power that we're going for is like a very hard thing to pull off. So like yeah, if you've done a lot of like Swift iOS engineering work or like a lot of web work, I think a lot of those things are like roles we're hiring for. So yeah, but if you don't think you fit any of those and you think, this is like something you really want to work on and you think you'd be a really good fit, like our bar is very high, but we just like love talking to people from all backgrounds. We
yeah,
don't like most of the people, two of our engineers, or no, every single one of our engineers except Kihan, my CTO, has dropped out of college
no,
at some point. So that's like, cool fact. So we don't care about like titles and stuff. And
yeah,
a lot of other people, teams are trying to build these like really amazing teams, and they look amazing. They're
like
like
name brand,
not name
yeah,
brands, they're like competition winners.
yeah,
But like we don't care about that. We just care if you build cool stuff and you've
yeah,
actually like been able to show that you have
yeah,
the ability to do stuff on your own, which I
yeah,
think most people don't. But
yeah, yeah. No, actually, yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I mean, I can say this comfortably about anyone that we've covered at Why You Should Join, hence why it's called Why You Should Join. That's why you're sitting here, is because really this is like the team to work with. Kihan, Ansh, Riley are all amazing. I've known Ansh the longest, and there's probably no one better to learn how the company built from at this age. And so this is definitely the team to join. But yeah, that's sort of all the questions I had for now. And I've already taken a lot of your time, so I appreciate it. And thank you.
Thanks, Usman.
Absolutely.
Great questions.